The way to win in gambling, man, is don't play. And I know you're scared money don't make no money. Cuz, my bad, y'all. I'm back. How ironic. Speak of the devil. But, yeah, man, it's, I hate that this even happened to them guys. That's real quite unfortunate. I just seen an interview with Kenny, Shaq, Barkley and them, and they of course was speaking on it, and the whole overall premise was pretty much, hopefully this was Kenny was saying, like, this move by them certain amount of players, hope that don't reflect on the whole brand of the NBA to the extent, basically he said, like, just because one person get a speeding ticket don't make everybody a speeder. And I understand that, and as I just mentioned how big gambling is anyway, of course every player or personnel ain't directly into it, but like Shaq said, there are rules of engagement, so to speak, because a lot of people gamble regardless of their profession, as Barkley said. But Shaq was saying, like, man, you already know the lines not to cross, so it's kind of like, damn. And Charles, that's when Kenny was like, I don't let this reflect on all the other NBA players. And then Barkley was on there. That's when Barkley was like, nah, hell no, like, I gamble, you know what I'm saying? But gambling and, gambling on your own spare time, I guess, and of course in-house gambling, as we'll put it, is two different things, as we know. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's quite unfortunate. And I know a lot of people was saying, well, y'all already make a certain amount of money. Why y'all gambling? And of course, that's gonna cross most people's mind. It crossed my mind. But as we know, a lot of us do know, the top of one level is the bottom of the next. And it's just that simple. Their peers in everyday layman or woman peers ain't the same. So while people on the bottom floor, as I'll put it, is hating and backstabbing over, I don't know, what, a single family home, as I'm going to compare it to, and then versus somebody, they comparing they mansions. And then, of course, you got mini mansions and all that and so on and so forth. But you get my point. So that's why people do. Now, you can call it greed, and maybe it's a little bit of that. But I don't know. So I really don't. But this is something. This is big. I don't think this is the average scandal. Due that it got the what is it, Cosa Nostra involved. And not just one family. They got 4. And of course, because everybody's involved in gambling. I mean, those that's involved are involved. You get my drift. But that's what makes this not, to me, in my opinion, your average scandal. This is some big, man. And the federales, them, they was already watching. I'm assuming a lot more faces, a lot more people, a lot more names gonna get called. And I'm not necessarily saying, I don't even think NBA players, I don't think. Now, I know, as I mentioned, it was talk that somebody that was, I'm not going to necessarily say close to LeBron, but that know LeBron was involved or indirectly involved somehow. So we definitely gonna see how far this rabbit hole goes. And yeah, man, that's bad. I kind of hate that it happened to Chauncey and them, but hey, man, everybody trying to get money, so hey, man, it's what it is, man. We'll talk to you when you get back out. Keep the sneak safe. You know what I mean? But nah, though, man, damn. Yeah, again, man, all jokes aside, damn. But y'all let me know what y'all think. How far y'all think this rabbit hole is going to go? This NBA gambling rabbit hole. And this is not the first nor the last. And I basically was pretty much thinking along the lines of, okay, well, no, because the mob being this ain't the old schools. This ain't 100 years ago. In 1925, it'd have been a whole different, as far as the mafioso having their hand in gambling, as far as over the table as well as below, but over the table, So now, of course, the new players, like what he's saying, what's that casino, man, the corporations took over, you know what I mean? That good corporate buddy, yeah, they took over, they run everything, don't they? But now, so they done took over, and like I was speaking about Vegas earlier, let me follow me, y'all. But now, as I was speaking about Vegas earlier, being that now that it seems that Vegas is dry now, people are not going because of the outrageous prices or whatnot, and it seems like they're trying to discourage people from showing up, when back in the day they used to encourage you from going to Vegas. And this is primarily due to they're trying to keep small money up out of there right now. And that's really the overall point. They're trying to keep small money up out of there and keep it exclusive to where, limit certain events and exclusives. And dare I say, now that I'm going down a rabbit hole, let's just say, and this is down a rabbit hole, y'all, and I know I've been accused of always going down a rabbit hole, but just follow me, man. I dream a lot. I watch a lot of TV. You know what I mean? My bad. But really, though, bullshit aside, let's just say, like, man, if they lock it down, you already got ICE everywhere going city to city, and they just start putting the clamps on these borders to where you just can't vacate like normally, no matter how much money you got. And if you really want to stunt, you're really going to have to go to Vegas now. Yeah, that's going to be the new... Yeah, ain't that far either. You can go right there. You probably get there less than an hour anywhere in the U.S. You know what I mean? Kinda hate that Chauncey, like, it kinda was the juice really worth the squeeze? And I know y'all was making money doing that. Or, this is gonna be interesting. And now whether I keep going down the rabbit hole, and I don't know, of course, and now, no, I doubt Mafioso was leaning on any of them. That they greed, if anything, was leaning on them. But who knows, So, and I say greed, but again, the top of one level is the bottom of the next, so in some capacities, it wasn't really greed, especially not to people up there, but anyway, I just wish he wouldn't have got himself involved in that. Chauncey, he had a decent, credible NBA career, while in the league, and then even post while he was coaching, he was cool. And I don't necessarily know his coaching record, so of course he's not a Phil Jackson or nobody like that, but he's a decent, knowledgeable. I would trust his NBA knowledge, let me put it like that, when it comes to that. Even when I did see him on TV speaking and commentating, again, he was a respected NBA guy, and was the juice worth the squeeze? Because I'm pretty sure, man, if you're not going to do no time, now there's probably going to be some finger pointing, we don't know, but if you do some time, you probably threw away that whole NBA package. Retired, and I hope not, hopefully his family, because, his children, whatever, little ones, but far as him, I don't know. He might be ass out. And the rest of them NBA, because he ain't the only one. You know, he's the more, his name ring harder. You know, but, and the other guy, what's his name? Yeah, what's his name? Terry Rozier. Yeah, man. So, you know, it's a lot of faces. You know, matter of fact, let me look while we talking because, yeah, as far as when it came to that poker, and again, they got him primarily, I think something else. Well, let's read the report while I'm just talking. There's actually a photo, as y'all showed y'all this photo, as y'all seen, you know, with him, Sophia, Wade, Saul, Beecher were indicted in a massive scheme. Now, let's see, man. Let's see. Because Sophia Wade, if I'm not mistaken, is she one of them female, dare I say one of them female commentators, man? Dare I say that? She might be. But regardless, point is, there's plenty more than Chauncey, and again, more names gonna come up. You know, and also, somebody mentioned, I forget where I heard this from, my bad, but they were saying like, well, how come they just putting all the, you know, NBA brothers for the most part name front and center, and not everybody else as far as when it comes to the mafioso. And well, as we seen in that photo, they had, you know, old girl and dude, but of course they wasn't mafioso. But well, for one, them names is not as famous as NBA, Chauncey Billups, and all that, for better or for worse. You know, and at the same time, you know, it's still early. So names gonna come, but even still, them names ain't gonna probably ring as hard. The algorithm is hard as far as just the whole NBA affiliation with this whole gambling ring. It ain't just like the mob families get caught in a gambling ring trying to do something. That's typical. That's a typical mob movie. You know, that's Tuesday. You know what I mean? But when we got them old NBA players, and a few names is kind of, you know what I mean? And, you know, Chauncey, man, he was an active NBA coach. That, you see, these ain't just retired, you know, this is kind of, this is like live and direct gambling influencing. You know everything live now, you understand? You know, streaming, you know, they doing it live. You know, fuck, in the background being, you know, in there closely, no, we doing this live. You know, same with the player. You know, I ain't playing today. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. You know, I'm only gonna play two. You know what I'm saying? 2 halves. And I'm gonna fake it and see all that type of. That's the type of yeah. Because you know the NBA, regardless how you feel, and all these other associations, and whether you can point the finger at them and say they cricket in their own way, and regardless whether you think that or not. The point is, they gonna be the only cricket ones in the house. So, this is pretty much what this looks like when it comes to that whole thing. But damn, though. Yeah, as I think about it more, it's pretty bad. But, let me know what y'all think about this, though.